We have our guest here today, Mr. Wesley Morris. Mr. Wesley Morris, who I think he's a transformational coach. You know Mr. Francis. What's Mr. Francis' name again? What bold coach name again? What's first name? Mr. Francis. And also Mr. Bold coach. No, Mr. Francis is a Safa Powell coach and Shelley and Fraser coach. Bolt's coach name is, I'm a good brethren, you know, from school days, but maybe I don't remember him so good. But from when we were at school. Yeah, Bolt coach. All of these coaches, all of them are transformational. Because a coach, in effect, that's what a coach is supposed to effect. To help you effect a transformation in your performance and so on and so forth. And that's why I know when sometimes coaches, a coach can have a big belly and produce 100 meters world record breaker. Because it's not him running. But he knows how to coach that runner and to help that runner develop the good habits that the runner needs to achieve the results that he not only needs to achieve, but to keep achieving and so on. So welcome to the studio, Mr. Morris, Mr. Wesley Morris.
Actually, it's Dr. Morris.
Doctor?
Yes.
Is there a difference?
Yeah.
What's the difference?
I've studied for 4 years to get a PhD.
Oh, it's a PhD. I thought it was a medical.
No.
Where you studied?
In London University.
Oh, yes? Which one of the colleges?
At Chelsea College.
Yes. And Chelsea College specializes in what?
Chelsea College, I did a master's in pharmacology there, so it did sciences and arts, and it also did things like pharmacy.
Yeah.
At Chelsea College.
By the way, why is it surgeons who are referred to as Mr.?
It's usually surgeons.
Why?
I suppose they've gone beyond all the need for... I'm not quite sure, actually.
But you know what Mr. means?
You tell me. No, I don't.
Mr. means master.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
And on the other hand now, whether it's in the English tradition or, I don't know if it's European, and in Jamaica it used to be so, when a male child is like pre-adolescent,
mm-hmm.
and is of a certain social standing, mm-hmm. that is so-called enviable, they usually refer to them as master.
I know that.
Like master, you know.
Yeah.
It takes time to get used to some of these degradation. But you are a transformational coach.
I am, yes.
Were you born in Jamaica?
I was born in Jamaica.
Yeah.
Yes, I lived there for the first 12 years of my life.
Yeah.
And then went to England 1964.
Yeah.
And spent 36 years outside of Jamaica.
So this is your anniversary?
It is my anniversary. It is my 60th year in life.
Yeah. The end of which month you reached the end of the 60th year?
It was in May.
May.
Yeah.
Good.
Mm.
So in 1964 you went to England?
Yes,
with parents or to join parents?
To join parents, yes. Yes, to Manchester in England.
Oh yeah?
And went to school there.
That's the place that I have spent most time in England.
Okay.
Just coincidentally.
Okay.
More than London, which I would have expected.
Okay.
Yeah. Manchester.
Yeah.
That's what? Midlands?
It's actually the northwest. Described as the northwest.
Oh.
Midlands is like Birmingham.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So when you went there, you weren't in high school, or you started high school from here?
I started high school there.
There?
Yeah.
So what part of Jamaica had you grown up?
I was born in Mount Charles near Mavis Bank.
Yeah.
Lived my first 7 years there, and then we went and spent some time in St. Thomas, which is Lethal in St. Thomas, for a while, and then I came and...
That's in the hills?
No, it's actually, Port Morant?
Yes.
About 2 miles this way from
I know it, but I didn't remember.
Okay.
Port Morant, yes.
Yeah. And
so 2 miles nearer to Morant Bay.
To Kingston, yeah. And so I went to school there for probably about nearly 2 years.
Yeah.
And then came to Kingston.
That's before you turn off to go to Bath.
Yeah.
They came to Kingston.
Yeah, and spent about 3 years in Kingston before going to England.
Yeah. Why I asked if it was in the hills, because, Mavis Bank is quite near to St. Thomas.
It's true.
In the hills.
Agligap.
Because even Blue Mountain Peak is actually in St. Thomas, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So going to England as a 12-year-old, that itself was a transformation for you.
It was a big experience, yeah.
Yeah.
Different culture, different weather, different people, different, everything really.
Values.
Food, values, yeah.
But this was early after independence, though. This was just 2 years after.
2 years after independence, yeah.
One thing I was saying to a friend of mine up there yesterday, which a lot of people might not realize. Jamaican life now is far more Americanized than it was Anglicanized in 62.
Yes, definitely.
And even though we had been living under Britain for 300 and something years.
Yeah.
And in 50 years we are more Americanized more than we were Anglicanized 50 years ago.
I think so.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, a lot of people who say were born that time and are 50 now, I mean, most of the time they've spent with an American influence, American culture, American TV, American cable, American almost anything. And the British seems to have moved out of having a dominant role in world affairs. They seem to be so much more subservient to the
exactly so. And I think the World War, which was just 10, 11 years before you reached Britain, the end of it, was actually the point at which it was clear that Britain's sun had not completely set, but it was past midday, it was evening, and America was...
Well, people date, like the Suez Crisis, where Eden was trying to do something in the Middle East, and the United States said no. And they said that really made a very important turning point on the British Empire, because it was very clear then that America was not only in the ascendancy, but were the dominant world player at that moment.
And the president of America at that time was one of the leading generals in the whole World War, coming down Eisenhower, and he wasn't going to take it. He was going to speak very firmly. But what is your discipline? Your discipline again is what?
Well, I was trained as a biochemist.
Oh, yeah?
Yes. Then, so my PhD is in biochemistry. And then I did a master's degree. After being in biochemistry for about 12 years, I did a master's degree in business administration to sort of convert to being able to, advise, people in business.
Yeah.
I did that at Manchester Business School, and it was a 2-year MBA. So we did a lot of project work. So, we had a lot of experience in organizations, more experience in organizations than I'd ever had before. So, it was really very hands-on. Right,
So your training, your application of your biochemistry, was it in what area was it? What field?
I did mainly research, right? I did some things in looking at the charges on cell particles, right? Cell particles like...
a lot of people don't know that electrical action takes place within... This is part of the life of a cell.
Definitely.
Electrical impulses.
Sure. So, I looked at, how to separate using a technique called countercurrent distribution, which is a way of passing two liquids through each other, a way of separating tiny particles of cells. And that's what I did my PhD on. And then I went to Portland, Oregon, and started looking at...
As in the United States?
Yes, looking at the surface properties of red cells from different organisms.
When you call red cells, it's because of their color? Or what?
Yeah. The predominant pigment is hemoglobin, which gives them a red color.
Yeah. And now the melanin is a quality or is a substance?
It's a substance. It's a substance that give pigmentation to the skin.
To all human beings?
To all human beings.
So all human beings are more or less melanin?
That's right.
But when you have a lot, your skin is so-called dark.
Dark, yeah.
And the most concentration of it is called black-skinned people.
Yes.
Even though if you are literally black.
Sure.
So the melanin...
And the absence of it is called white, even though there's no such thing as actually white people.
Yes. And albinism exists in all life forms, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
You see the absence of pigment.
That's right.
You see it in fish that don't see sunlight. You see it in animals. You see it in plants.
But even some that see sunlight because they can't produce the melanin.
Melanin, yeah.
They, are without
Yeah,
pigmentation.
but does melanin also exist in the eyeball, or the color of the have a factor in the color of
I
eye?
think it does. Yeah.
But it's like a strain from the point about which you came here. Transformation. Well, now in biochemistry now, you also would have studied the brain and the biochemical effect on the brain and all that kind of thing.
Well, I did physiology as part of the courses leading up to biochemistry.
Physiology of human beings.
Yes, of human beings. And
that is the study of the physical.
Yes, the organ systems.
Yeah.
Yeah, like say the pumping of the heart. How it contracts. Digestion of food, etc., and what happens there. And all of those things.
How voluntary is human behavior? How much? How voluntary is human behavior?
Voluntary. I'd say my observation is that it isn't very. It's a lot of it is programmed not only by our genetics but in terms of by our past experiences and how
recent past or long past.
All.
Yeah.
And many of our reactions now are based on experiences that we've had a very long time ago.
Yeah.
Often around childhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you say very little of human behavior.
Yeah. It's voluntary.
It's voluntary.
Yeah.
So very little of it is spontaneous also.
Well, I'd say so. A very little is spontaneous.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's all coming from somewhere.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, we soon go for a break, but we just going to talk. I find that even people who deny or do not admit.
Mm-hmm.
When I say admit, I don't mean confess. They don't let in the door, like how you admit somebody in the door, you don't admit them. Do not admit any so-called spiritual life or spiritual power or religion or faith. Have to exercise faith.
That's right.
Because if you take a bus or if you even go in your car and drive down the road, you do so in good faith.
Sure.
That the bus driver will be careful, although you have never met him before, or that the traffic will be fairly well behaved and respond to your signals and your requests. So you exercise faith in life.
And you don't expect an earthquake or at that moment. People very rarely do. So you have a certain amount of faith that certain things will happen and certain things won't happen.
But we don't know when to expect an earthquake.
No.
But we have a fair idea when to expect hurricanes.
That's right, because they're coming.
No, yeah, there's a
weather system.
There's a system, and it is seasonal. Even though some things they happen out of season, and so some go so-called out of place because tropical. What is a tropical storm doing in New England? New England is not the tropics, but it happens sometime. But by and large, we know it is a safer bet to fly at certain time of the year and take a holiday in the Caribbean. Sure. It will be sunny. And so the fact that you go down the road is not that you don't expect an earthquake, but you have faith that most earthquakes will not kill all the human beings in any one location, and therefore you're not going to suspend your efforts in life.
No.
And lay down arms because earthquakes are possible.
Sure.
Yeah. So now at what point now you realize your not only potential but your predisposition to be able to help coach people?
Okay, so that's a great question. I was going through some... And rather, I never really felt that biochemistry was my calling. I've always thought that, really what I wanted to do was help people. So, in a way, all the time I felt that I wanted to help people. Even whilst I was doing my PhD, I was still reading other kind of books in my spare time. Books on philosophy, books on history, books on all of these things, right? So it was always there in the background. where it came to the foreground was when, around 1987, 88, when biochemistry and myself looked as if we were going to part company, right? And then I said to myself, okay, so what do you really want to do with your life? And what I really wanted to do is make a difference to people's lives, because I've always had conversations where I'd be talking to someone and they'd see something that would make a difference to their lives. They could change direction or whatever, because I could see something of the truth of what they were saying. And I listened in such a way that made a difference to them.
Yeah, listening, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, talking to my guest today, Dr. Wesley Morris, the transformational coach, having been a biochemist and MBA in
business
administration and other things. But this music came out about a decade after you reached England. But Roger Miller was, very popular at the time, a kind of folk singer.
Mm-hmm.
He was expressing,
Yeah.
the common view of an impression of England.
Mm-hmm.
Some very nice, laid back, not laid back in the sense of the hippies in America.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of, that kind of lifestyle about England that intrigues people,
Sure.
And
I remember that tune, actually.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine what a culture shock. By the way, reaching in England now, we are taught English in schools, and we have our patois.
Mm-hmm.
But you still have to learn both to use the English spoken in England at the time, and also to speak, to let yourself be understood.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't you? Even as a 12-year-old.
I didn't remember experiencing anything at the time. In looking back at it now, I know that I was teased at school sometimes, right? Whether that was because of it or not, I don't know. I have a friend who went to England when she was about 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And apparently her first experience at school was, one of the first experiences she had at school was, she said 3 for 3. And people would ask her to say 3, and she'd say 3, right? And of course, and that
is an unending source of either amusement or
embarrassment.
Embarrassment.
Both in that case. Amusement for the children that were asking her, and embarrassment for her.
Yeah.
So, and she's actually right now she speaks very proper, right? She writes. She also writes very well, And maybe that all came out of the experience of being teased when she was very young.
Just before we get back to the main point, his father was from Brownstown in St. Annie. Migrated to Kingston. Migrated not all over the world, all over the hemisphere for decades. Had business in Cuba, Nassau, Panama. Came back to Jamaica. But when my father was 12, his father sent him back down to St. Anne to be educated. Especially since his friend who had the school was a Garveyite, and both of them knew Garvey himself. 3 of them came from St. Anne. When my old man went down there at 12 years old, he didn't like it at all for the year that he was there. That's why I only spent a year. Because the first thing that happened, they started to tease him about his town man accent. Now here's a man talking as a town man, 12 years old like you. And he would have perceived that he is more advanced than them, and to have a town accent or an American accent is supposed to be a step up. But the country youth are teasing him about him town man accent.
Well, I had a similar experience coming back here 10 years ago.
Yeah.
There was a phrase, my youth.
Yeah.
And I was in the refectory at JMB. I was working as a consultant there.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And I presumed to say my youth. And somebody looked at me and he said, no.
It's not on.
No. just speak English.
Yeah.
So, since I came back here, I've not been able to use the few patois words I've known, because people always look at me as like, no. Do the English.
Yeah. But you so when you realize your not only ability to listen but to reassure the other person that there's some worth in them, did you decide to get some training to hone those innate born skills?
Well, yes, I have done a lot of training on that.
You have been trained?
Yes, I've been trained. I've been done a lot of reading in that area. to understand more about listening, more about how to make a difference to people. In fact, I'm still doing it, and I'm still, not only have I read, but I've been coached. I've been, like 2 of the courses that I've done, one are in neuro-linguistic programming, which is a way of actually helping people to get rid of deep beliefs which are not productive or counterproductive to their well-being and to them getting on in society or making it in business. So I've done a lot of work in terms of owning those skills. Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So the habits, I have learned that you don't get rid of habits just like that.
Mm-hmm.
The most effective way that I have learned to get rid of an undesirable habit is to replace it with a desirable habit. Is there any sense in that?
There is a sense in that, definitely, right? But one of the things I do, I actually get to the root of that habit and actually help to disappear it by putting something else in place.
Yeah, well,
another
habit.
A much more productive way of being.
Which is a habit.
It's a habit, yes.
Yeah.
So it's about helping to generate new habits.
So in but through experience and self-examination and a little reading, I arrived approximately at what you are saying there now.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to replace undesirable habits with good habits.
Sure.
And train yourself into them.
Yes.
Like coaching is not just sufficient to tell Bolt not to drag one knee when he's lifting, but to go through the exercise daily.
Sure.
Until it become an automatic thing or what.
Sure, it's about doing certain things. Like, for example, some people run through rubber tires to actually lift their legs. And so it's about doing certain things. For example, like the netballers, the Jamaican netballers, apparently one of the things that they're saying that they need to do is to be able to shoot nets away from the net, not just under the net.
Don't try to get up close.
Right, because the Australians and New Zealanders, they shoot a lot from away from the net. Well, part of what you could do in training is like draw a line around the net and say, if you'll only score a net when you're beyond this line, right? So it's like lengthening the distance that they have to score from, so that they practice that particular habit, right? So there are all sorts of things that coaches will tend to have to do to get people into doing new performing in a different way. I do those, and I also do some other things, which is to find out what is actually driving the habit that is undesirable.
Yeah. Now, our people, the vast majority of our population, has been here through generations for more than 300 years.
Okay.
We are still not used to land possession.
Okay.
A lot of us own land, a lot of our families own land, but not the majority. So we're still not used to land possession. We're still not used to respecting other people's land, especially since we have been denied land, and all those kind of things.
Okay.
So the habit is in us. So some of we're not used to certain things individually, and we're not used to certain things collectively, even though many of us are used to them, and many families do have land and opportunity and so on. So a lot of our people perceive that there's some curse on us. Don't you know there's a common idea? Why something wrong with black people? Eh?
It's been said, definitely.
But this is not so.
No.
And in individually trying to encourage our people that we can work our way out of this, it is desirable to convey those ideas. But first we have to work on ourselves in order to be more effective. Because
definitely. I mean, if you're going to... For example, you mentioned Marcus Garvey before. He was very effective at conveying certain ideas. But I'm sure if he wasn't very clear about those things within himself, if he didn't have a certain level of self-confidence, if he didn't know certain things, and apparently each also traveled to England, learned from somebody apparently from Ethiopia or
Egypt,
right? He learned some, and incidentally, one of the things I learned as well was when I was doing biochemistry in my first year biochemistry in London between 1974-75, was I went to a Black Studies course, and it was taught by a guy from Nigeria, and he knew his stuff. He knew his stuff in terms of history. So, any idea that I may have had about where I was coming from, etc., was was very cleared up by this guy. So he was also described himself as a Garveyite. A Garveyite and a Fanonist, right? So the thing is, you really need to be very clear. You need to be very confident. You need to have, one of the most important things is to have faith in the people that you're leading, right? To believe that they can do it and to actually transmit that.
Yeah.
You don't want a leader who would just think that they are above the people and not servants of the people, right?
Yeah.
Servants of the people in terms of helping to bring out what's best in them, and that to believe that things can change. We're not just in a disastrous situation that nothing can be improved. We're in a situation where there is good in each person, and the leader's job is to help to bring that good out for the benefit not only of the individuals but in terms of the whole society.
Yeah. So, as I was saying, in order to help effect and inspire this confidence in people, one has to work on oneself.
Sure, definitely.
Continually, on an ongoing basis.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think one of the you mentioned MR, which was short for master, right?
Yeah.
I think if you're going to be good at anything, you need to. If you're going to be a master at anything, whether it's coaching, whether it's broadcasting, etc., you need to have a passion for it so that it's something that's constantly evolving, something that's constantly growing, something that you're constantly learning about, right? And it's, right now, I am learning each day, not only in terms of the work that I do, which if you love what you do, you're going to learn from the work anyhow. They say life is one of the greatest teachers, right? But I also learn from.
You see me raise my eyebrow there, and you see that something resonate there.
Okay.
All right, we're going to go for a break. Finish saying what you're saying, and we'll go for a break.
So yes, but I also learn from books, and I also get regular coaching. Especially when I have something that I want to do that I don't quite know how to do. So I work with somebody in order.
To straight up, going into the concluding third of my interview with my guest for today, Dr. Wesley Morris, a transformational coach, and has had several careers before that, ranging from biochemistry to right through many things. But he said something a while ago about life teaching us and so on. And I was thinking of something to mention to him before when we were talking about Marcus Garvey. And right now that resonated with something that I was going to say. Because when I was 15, 16 years old, my old man, same father, same son of my grandfather was a Garvey, a good friend of Marcus Garvey and thing. So we grew up with a consciousness, African consciousness, black consciousness and so on. And as a youth, 12, 13, 14, just before and just after independence in Jamaica, I am, asserting my own mind as a African youth and thing, and I'm looking around for some people who can lead with some ideas, because there's ideas really that lead rather than personalities. And knowing that Marcus Garvey is no longer on the scene but still great, looking for somebody alive and well who is on the scene, And I read a speech by Haile Selassie in about 1964, and it started out like this: what life has taught me. That's why I raised my eyebrow when you were telling about life teaching things. So he said, and it's the most famous speech by him. He said, what life has taught me, I would like to share with those who care to learn. So he must issue an invitation, but him knows only some going to care to learn. And him says, life teach him, just like how him teach me, Garvey teach me, you might teach me. Him say, life has taught him, because life also teaches us.
Yep.
And one of the first things life has taught him is that what? That until the philosophy, that all one race superior to another is abolished, you're going to be war, because no race is superior to another. No, him said until there's no longer first and second class citizenship. So there's no class that is superior to any other. And therefore there's no family that is superior to the other families. So him himself knew, from the time that he was found himself born into royalty in Ethiopia, he knew that royalty is only a stage of human development. It's not an inherent thing that one family is going to rule over the rest of the world forever. So that is the first thing, one of the first things that life taught him, And that's why he was prepared for revolution in Ethiopia, because he know that this is not a forever thing. I'm going to ask you to read a paragraph here now. Hope you don't mind. This paragraph. It's from a newsletter by a Rastafarian organization. Could you just read that paragraph for me? The headline is what?
The reappearance of Emperor Haile Selassie the First in 2012.
Yeah.
The reappearance of the Emperor again in August 2012 unfold the mysteries of his divinity. That the one who sits in the throne of the heavens and the one to establish King David's throne for his Christ to reign in earth lives forever, being the Almighty, the Lord of hosts, the highest himself, as indeed established King David's throne in Ethiopia, the Mount Zion, the International, now awaits. Luke 1.
Quotation from the Bible.
Right.
Yeah, can conclude here. Now, the thing is this, that rather than follow the teachings of Haile Selassie, a lot of my brethren and sisters, it is normal in human behavior. They concentrate on the legend and myth, and myth building and divinity and worship. So it is that with most Christians don't follow the teachings of Christ, but they concentrate on the worship of Christ and the taking up of collection.
Sure.
This is an organization them building, not really following the teachings of Christ. So you find that Haile Selassie teaches us what life has taught him. But most of us who call ourselves by his name, because I'm a Rastafarian, more concentrating on the mystique, the photograph, the beard, and the, that mystical power and the powers and so on. So here it is being circulated that His Majesty was seen in Ethiopia in 2012, and all kind of different legends and myths, and people concentrate on these things.
Sure.
And get caught up in these things.
Sure.
And not in his teaching that him teach.
Well, I mean, the Buddhists have a saying that, don't mistake the finger pointing for the moon.
Yes.
Which is like, there's the essential teachings.
Yes.
But there's also the thing that, is like the pointing thing, like the religion and the rituals, etc. Right? So some people get really involved in the rituals and don't see the essence right, of what the teaching is all about. And I think that's what my understanding of what you're saying is the difference between the essence of the teaching, which for Christianity it seems to me to be about love, right? Love one another, love even your enemies, which means have no enemies, right? And the power of love, and that love and God.
We're not talking about romantic love.
No.
The word love really means care. Care.
Yes,
that's what it means. Care.
Yes.
Care.
Yes. So it seems to me that a very important aspect of that religion is about love.
Yes. And that is what Christ never come. The Jesus that I'm called Christ. Because Christ is just a title, like PhD. So the Jesus now, the man known as Jesus. So whenever they want to say Jesus or Jesus, never come to be worshiping him. Come to teach. But it's more the worship and the trappings.
Yeah.
And he never come to establish no religion. He come to exercise and teach faith. Faith. Because faith is effective in not religion.
Okay. And maybe that's the difference. Maybe that's the important thing. That, it's about the effective things. It's like, if religions were effective, then, it would have a very enormous transformative power, right?
So it is the teachings in the religion that is transformative.
That's
the
it.
Teachings, not the rituals.
No
set of rituals can transform it.
No.
It only make you more self-righteous.
Well, I mean, so for some people, that's what they
that's what they want to attain,
right? To be right about something.
Right.
And apparently, nothing is more seductive than being right, right? So to be right and to have other people wrong, that's very important for a lot of people as human beings, right? But that's just of the ego.
Yeah.
But if they went for the essence of the thing, that's what would give it the transformative power. And that's in any religion what would give it the transformative power.
So you know, you are not, are you just the body that wearing those clothes there?
No.
Or that you are this body, you are related to this body. You're definitely related to this body. But the you is not.
The I am is not of the body, because this will be left at some stage. I don't even know when it's going to be left.
Yeah.
I mean,
you're here?
Sorry?
You're here?
Only insofar that I'd like to see my children, right? Yeah. There are things of this world that I do like, like, being married to my wife, being with my children.
So you enjoy it day by day?
I enjoy it, right? But it won't, I will leave it.
Yeah. So do you spend, isn't it good for us to break out of the habit of about fretting about tomorrow and about death?
Definitely, definitely. And I think a lot of people are caught up, right? And I think it with this whole thing, almost as if we don't die, or we shouldn't die, or if there's something wrong if we die.
Yes, that's why I say to people that death is not a tragedy.
It's part, the fact that we're born means that we die.
Yes, of course.
I had a friend.
A body is a span, as a lifetime.
That's right. Everybody.
That's what I telling one of my Rasta brethren, youth brethren.
Everybody.
Say bodies die. It's a fact of life.
A friend of mine over the summer saw him again. I've known him from the time I was a little boy.
Yeah.
And he said, one of the things I've come to learn is that I'm going to die.
Yeah.
He said, my father, I came along, saw my father, who was hale, hearty, strong, etc. He died.
Yeah.
I saw my mother, who was born, she was hale, hearty, etc. She died.
Yeah.
I'm going to die. Right? Yeah. And not many people seem to accept that they're going to die.
Are they take it as a tragedy?
They do take it as a tragedy.
In other words, and not only that, them take age. They take age as a slope, a downward slope. Can you imagine? Taking age as a downward slope.
Which is unlike how age has been taken in all traditional society. It's been taken as an honor, right? As people are growing in wisdom, as the repository of wisdom, a whole library of information about the community and about life, etc., can be had from people old. Well, but, in many ways, the societies in which we live, it venerates the young.
Yes.
Right? The teenager, the people in their early 20s, right? It venerates those people rather than people who've gone past 40, 50, right? Who've accumulated some wisdom and knowledge in life. It venerates those people.
Yeah. And none of these sections of humanity should be jealous of one another. The age shouldn't be jealous of the young for the youth. And the youth shouldn't be jealous of the age for whatever they have accumulated.
Definitely. It's all stages we go through. And we all benefit from what we all bring.
And it is capable for the youth to be ageless. Whatever, that is what it's supposed to be.
No, I mean, the essence of who you are is ageless. Right? I mean, it's eternal.
Yeah.
It's eternal.
Yeah.
And that's a very central part of what I am trying to do in terms of putting people in touch with that part. That's what transformation is. It's not just a matter of
transformation before you die.
Definitely.
Rather than some people's religion teach them that is dying is a transformation.
Yes, some people. Yes. So it's not a series of practices to get you to do things better.
Yeah.
It really is to actually get the better out of you by getting in touch. Yes, definitely. By getting in touch with the essence of who you are. That does it. That's really what it's about.
So now I have become very comfortable, especially as somebody who started showing grey hairs from I was in my 20s.
Okay.
Very comfortable with that.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not going to find me buying up black polish and polishing my beard and them kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
And not running my mouth on man who died them here and things.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, what a word about that?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I worried that I can only run 100 meters in 14 seconds?
Mm-hmm.
And so on. No. You must get comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely. I mean, it's not something that I've done either, in terms of trying to make myself look younger. But in a sense, you can understand that because there's so much that's geared towards youth. And there's so much negative press
Connotation,
about people who are getting grey or anything.
You're done and all.
You're finished.
No girl now go want you.
Nobody's gonna want you, which is the worst thing that could ever happen to anybody.
We haven't reached very far in what you want to say. So you're welcome to come back here soon. I don't know how much time you have.
Okay. I mean, I'll come back.
Yeah, this is an introduction.
Sure.
And thank you for having been here.
No, you're welcome.
And this is Dr. Wesley Morris. When did you come back to Jamaica?
In 2002.
And what attracted you back?
Sense of belonging, and I actually love Jamaican people. I think that a lot of people say really dreadful things about Jamaican people, and it's all nonsense.
Yeah, so you came back at 50. You've been here 10 years, and it's great.
Yeah.
What I have learned, and I've been saying for about 10 years now, life gets better.
Yeah.
And then the nature of life is for life to get better.
Yeah.
I don't believe that. I know that.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.